All right, welcome everyone to another Peaceful Solution Character Education Program Teacher Certification course. You can be seated if you are standing and you're joining us for the first time. I do hope that you've had the opportunity to go through the previous lessons, the previous videos, covering the first 5 chapters of the acceptance unit and the previous unit, which was the first one being that of character in the intermediate unit. We're going to be continuing in chapter 6 this evening. And of course, as we like to remind everybody, if you don't know already, of course, you can find these books by just going to the little tab under the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program and clicking down on the books, the PDF books, and select more, and you will find the book that we are currently in, which is Acceptance. All right, so if everyone remembers the previous class, Wednesday, William left off talking about reaching our goals. Reaching our goals, the difference between positive and negative goals, and the importance of using self-control and morality when setting goals. And that's very important. And remember what we're dealing with here. We're setting the stage for us as teachers to be able to convey this information in regards to what we covered in the previous chapter, which is a great precedence to this chapter, which is purpose and understanding our purpose, into goals, right? Because once you understand your purpose, then it's important to be able to set goals, take the steps necessary, whether they're, and it's usually a combination of the two, both short-term and long-term goals, in order to accomplish that purpose or to reach that purpose, positive direction in which you grow and mature. All right. So we want to keep those things in mind, and we're going to be looking at goals today. Like I said, we're going to be picking up on page 116, page 116, and before we go there, I just want to read Lesson Plan 6, page D. We're going to go back to Lesson Plan 6, page D. I was just checking something in my notes right quick. All right. Okay. So let's look at Lesson Plan 6, page D. And we're going to look at Procedure 5. Again, we're in Chapter 6 here. And the title of this chapter, just for your notes, if you are just joining us, it's Reach for Your Goals. All right. And of course, the purpose is students will learn how to set positive goals. And students will also learn that positive goals are important in building positive moral character. So it's an integral or an essential part of the ultimate goal of what we're striving to do in going through all of these lessons, which is to build and, of course, maintain a positive character. Going a step further, being able to actually impart the knowledge that we have as students. Remember, even if we're teachers, we're constantly students, right? We're constantly learning and feeding our minds with information on the development of a positive character. Not even if we have the foundation of the positive character principles in our mind, there's going to be different situations that'll test our resolve in applying those principles, right? So there's always going to be new things or new ways in which we're going to learn to apply these things, and that can be a challenge sometimes. Now, you think about us as adults and how better we're able to reason and consider and use foresight and insight into resolving matters, and coupling that with the principles we've learned in the Peaceful Solution in order to bring about a solving of a problem. And what we have to draw off of is the combination of what we've put in our minds, the information and knowledge we've put in our minds, and the experiences that we've had. Now, for younger people, our students, they're not going to have quite as many experiences to draw off of from history as we will. So this is where it's very important to remind them to go back to the principles that they've learned and continuously rehearse these things. We can't we have to, remind them, and we have to remind ourselves as well. This is one of the things that we do as teachers, and we encourage you to do as teachers before you teach a lesson. Don't just get up there and wing it. Go back through the lesson prior to the one you're going to be covering, because everything is a building up from one to another, like building blocks, to bring you to the point that we're at right now. So it's important to remind them of these things, because as long as they know where to find the information and are willing to apply it in every situation, then they're going to come out on top. They're going to have success. Not to say that they're, never going to make a mistake, or make a bad choice or something like that. But for the most part, they're going to have more successes than failures, because if we know where to find the information, and then we're willing to apply that information once we find it, and read it on our own, or once we're taught it by someone else, whether it's through a class, whether it's through counsel, whatever the case might be, a guidance counselor, or a teacher, or parent, if we're willing to apply that, then we can start to see the benefits or the results from choosing a moral course of action instead of an immoral or impulsive course of action. All right, and so this is very important. And that's kind of where William left off in regards to using self-control. Using self-control on page 113, he covered and morality when setting goals, right? Because we can't. It's not enough to just set a goal, but we have to incorporate all these other things, these other lessons that we covered in the previous books, in order to have success in reaching our goals. All right, and that can't be overstated. So, like I said here, lesson plan 6, page D, we're in procedure 5, and it says, tell students that they must consider that there are both realistic and unrealistic goals. Now, remember, previous teachers covered that words must. This is important. This is something that has to be taken note of. A critical point of the sentence here. They must consider, right? If they don't, then they're going to be sadly disappointed when they've set a goal that is in all reality unrealistic, but in their mind they think it's realistic. Okay, so this is where we're going to teach them to be able to discern between the two, just like we covered previously, the difference between a positive and a negative goal, right? Not everything that you desire to do just because you desire to do it is positive. Okay, and we have to use the standards that we've learned in the Peaceful Solution to determine if the goals that we're setting and striving to accomplish are positive or negative, and the same way if they're realistic and unrealistic. Ask students to turn to pages 116 through 117 in their handbooks and read the definition of the word realistic and the section entitled Be Realistic. Okay, so we'll read that. And then have students read the scenarios, then answer the questions that follow. All right, so let's turn over to page 116 there, because that's what we're going to be picking up today. All right, and we're going to be looking at that section under Be Realistic. All right, be realistic. And just keep in mind, like I said, the previous things that were covered in the the class before, in William's class, in regards to the goals and things that a young person might endeavor to do. Being a scientist, or a biologist or something, starting a family. Gave the example, even somebody might want to become a millionaire. And those things are accomplished. They're able to be accomplished by pretty much any individual. But how they go about accomplishing those goals have to fall within the lines of morality, right? And then, of course, the practicing of self-control. And they're going to have a better opportunity of sticking with those goals if they set realistic goals. If they make it realistic, if they make it so lofty and so vast that it's virtually impossible to accomplish. It sounds great on paper, it sounds great in theory, but can you really accomplish that? Okay, and we're going to go over some examples here in that, but let's look at page 116 here at the very top, and it's under the title Be Realistic. All right. Now, this is something that I want to draw your attention to as teachers. Okay, and this is something that, of course, you're going to read to your students, but pay very close attention to these sentences and the words in the sentences and how they're laid out, because this is also goes along with the importance of why we have to go step by step in these lessons and not skip back and forth. Now, if you have to go back to a lesson to reiterate a certain point, that's fine. That's not what I mean. But I mean taking the lessons step by step by step by step, because they build up to one another. And look at the first four words here in this paragraph under be realistic. Now that you know, all right? Now that you know. So obviously here, if you didn't cover the previous lesson or you missed the previous lesson, it would be imperative that you as the teacher or the student, or your student would need to go back and rehearse that lesson, because they won't know unless they've been taught it, unless they were there to hear that message presented by the teacher. Okay? So from the standpoint of a teacher, it's necessary that we teach the students the previous lesson. And like I said, it can be, it could be tempting at times, if you want to hurry up and get through something, or hurry up and accomplish something before the end of the week or whatever. No, don't do that. Take your time, cover each lesson thoroughly, because you'll get to a point like this where it says, now that you know. And if you haven't done it, then you're going to be lacking in your ability as a teacher, and the student is also going to be lacking in their information, their knowledge of what was in the previous lesson, which is equipping them for what they're going to be learning right now. All right, so just keep that in mind there. Now that you know the importance of setting goals that are positive, the next step is to be realistic about the goals you set. Okay, talking to the students, now that they know the importance of setting goals that are positive. And let's just go back a little bit here and refresh in our minds, what is this importance of setting positive goals? Let's look back to page 109 here. We're going to look at page 109, 110, and 112. And this is at the very beginning of the chapter under the introduction, which is chapter 6, Reach for Your Goals. And if you look at the second paragraph there, and look at the second sentence, it says, learning to consciously, which means, we're thinking about this. It's not like the example that they give there in the previous paragraph. It talks about you've been achieving goals pretty much all your life, from learning to walk and talk and ride a bike and do certain things. And a lot of those things that were done, they were done unconsciously, right? As a child, you don't sit there and think, one day I'm going to learn how to pick up the spoon and put it in my mouth, dip it in the bowl and put it in my mouth. You don't think about learning how to walk or run. It's just something that inherently starts to come, right? You see the big people walking around you, and you just start to imitate what's in your environment, the influences that are around you and so forth. But as you get older, as a child gets older and they get into the later years, the preteen years and so forth, now they're starting to consciously make certain decisions. Even before that, they're kind of starting to make conscious decisions, but they're not always thinking about the consequences of their decisions that they make. A lot of toddlers, you can tell they're consciously thinking about doing things that they're not supposed to do, because when they do them, where are they? It's quiet. Oh, they're hiding. They're hiding while they're eating a snack that they took off the table they didn't have permission to take, right? And so they were thinking about that. They wanted that. They knew they shouldn't have had that. And they knew the fact that they knew was evidence in the fact that they were trying to hide the fact that they took that snack off the table, right? Or as the old saying goes, stole the cookie out the cookie jar. But they don't necessarily think of the long-term consequences of their decisions. Well, as a person gets older and they get into that, preteen or pre-adolescence years, and then they, transition into the teenage years, and then very soon into adulthood. And as the experiences mount, coupled with the teaching, the education, now they're able to draw, from many different sources of information to form a conclusion and to say that if I make this decision, this could be the outcome. All right. And of course, hopefully by the time that, we've gotten to this point, and if they've been trained in the peaceful solution, they can be able to determine if the decision they're making is going to be positive or if it's going to be negative. All right. And so let's just back up there in the first sentence of that second paragraph. It says, however, there is a vast difference between goals you have accomplished because you reach certain developmental stages. So talking about the things that we just mentioned, growing up and, learning to eat and talk and walk and ride a bike and so forth. And goals that you consciously set and strive to attain. So you think about it, you set the goal, and then you work on trying to attain it. So it says here where we started before, learning to consciously set and achieve positive moral goals is an important part of growing up. It's very important, and it's important to, as a teacher, we kind of want to, we want to encourage our students to set goals, right? To make decisions, to put into practice the things that they've been learning from the peaceful solution and many other things in life, right? To see and to give them an opportunity to apply the moral principles that they've been learning, right? I mean, there's, I want to say nothing more satisfying, but it's very satisfying, I guess I'll say, to think about something that you want to accomplish, to set a goal or a series of goals to accomplish that thing, that particular thing, and then achieving it. And then you can look back and see where you started from, because it all starts with the thought and the steps that you took in achieving those goals, whether they're short term or long term, or a combination of both. And now the success of the achievement that sets before you. Okay? And it doesn't always have to be something that's tangible that you can see and hold in your hand. Sometimes it is. And for a lot of young people, they kind of, what they can see, it means a lot to them. But as they become more educated, there are things that they can't see, like the positive character, that becomes just as valuable or even more valuable to them than the things that they can see or that they can hold in their hands. So notice here, it's an important part of growing up. It shows that you are maturing, okay? And this goes along with purposes and so forth. That you have self-control and that you are responsible and disciplined. So notice all the positive character traits that are shown here in being able to set and achieve positive moral goals. It is also one more step in achieving a positive moral character and accepting yourself as a worthwhile human being, okay? And so remember what we're talking about here. We're talking about the importance, now that you've learned, the importance of setting goals that are positive, right? So we see the first step is that this helps us to develop a positive or achieve a positive moral character. It helps us in developing the character trait, and it obviously shows as we mature that we're developing the character trait of traits of self-control, responsibility, and being disciplined. Okay, and it also increases our value, right? Our value as a human being. Worthwhile, things that ties into the definition of the word value. And when we recognize the value in ourselves, we won't consciously or willfully do things that would decrease that value, or subject ourselves to things that would decrease our value. And some of the things that we covered, about the underage drinking, the premarital sex, the abuse of drugs and alcohol, the risk-taking behaviors, those are things that can decrease our value, our self-worth, okay? Not that it makes us less of a person, but, you look at it as like a record that we're making, right? And every positive thing you do is a positive mark on that record. right? Now, it would be great to have a record with 100% positives on there, but it's not always the case. But every negative thing you do, you get a negative mark on that record. Well, the goal is to have the positives outweigh the negatives, okay? But sometimes people get in a situation where they do things and they devalue themselves, and then they start to look down on themselves because of the poor choice that they made, and because of the influences, the lack of education, um, and the environment. They continue to make poor choices, and they continue to devalue themselves even more. And as a result, they kind of go down this spiraling circle and a hole that they feel that they can never get out of, and then that leads to things like depression, anxiety, more abuse of prescription drugs, alcohol, illegal drugs, and so forth, binge eating and things of that nature. And when it gets to the peak, a lot of people think that the answer is suicide. And of course, that is not the answer. So let's look here on page 110 here, and keeping in mind what we're talking about, the importance of setting positive moral goals. In the third paragraph, under be a goal setter, the first sentence says, in addition to setting goals to fulfill your purpose in life, remember what we covered in the previous chapter of purpose, you can set goals to better yourself, okay? So it's not just a matter of, like the examples were given in the previous class, I just want to win $1 million. I remember I gave the example from, this was a long, long time ago. I was still in high school, so, virtually eons ago. But I remember being on the bus, and I remember a young lady, she was more of a mother, so she was an older lady, but she was talking to some young men who were kind of goofing off on the bus, and she was trying to give them words of encouragement and tell them, the way that they were going and the way that they were acting it's not befitting them. It's not becoming, of them, and that they should strive for, getting an education and getting a job and so forth. And I remember the young man saying on the bus, I never turned back and looked at him, but I remember the thing that had just always stuck in my mind. He says, one of my goals is just to make $100 a day, $100 a day, And I mean, that's all. He repeated it like 4 or 5 times, and I was thinking, man, that's your goal in life, just to make $100 a day, It wouldn't get him very far, but in his mind, and of course, as we know now, these are some of the things that go with environment and influences, experiences, and so forth. Those are things that influence people to set certain goals, right? Now, $100 a day wouldn't get you much nowadays. That's you barely almost nowadays could fill up your tank for $100 a day if you got you one of them big trucks there. But I would say, if he gathered any more education as he got older, that goal probably changed, right? And this is one of the things that we have to learn in life, that our goals will change, just like our values will change as we get older. Nothing wrong with that. The thing that we want to make sure of is that they always fall in line with the moral principles that we're being taught from the peaceful solution. We don't want to change it from a positive goal to a negative goal, right? Because then we're going backwards, or we're going downhill. We always want to fall in a direction, or go in a direction that's going to lead us one step closer to accomplishing our goal and building a positive moral character. All right, so let's look at page 112 there. So help you to fulfill your purpose in life. And we're going to look at underneath, what's the difference on page 112. And it says here, although there are many types of goals, most goals can be categorized as either positive or negative. A moral positive goal is beneficial for yourself and others. Okay, keep that in mind. And we remind our students of that all the time. This goes with goals. This goes with values. This goes with influences. Most of these things that can fall into one of these two categories of either positive or negative. Well, a positive goal, a positive moral goal, is beneficial for yourself and others. It strengthens and motivates you to succeed. Strengthens and motivates you. The first place in regards to you being strengthened, and this is important for you to reiterate this to your students, because when you look at young people nowadays, they got to go to the gym, they got to have their protein shakes, they got to do this, they got to do that, they got 30 minutes of cardio, and this is how I'm strong. Yet, we still have very, very young people in high school and sometimes even junior high school, dropping dead on the football field of cardiac arrest, right? So although the physical exercise does benefit some, what we're concerned with here is the development of the character, and that's found in the heart and the mind. Okay, the things that we value and the decisions that we make, as seen through our attitude and our behavior. Okay, that's what we want to reiterate to our students there. But notice these positive goals, they strengthen. What do? They strengthen your character. They strengthen your mind. They strengthen your resolve. They strengthen your determination to always make the right choice. It makes you a strong person. And strength is not measured in the size of a muscle, right? Or the amount of zeros before the decimal that you have in your bank account, right? To me, a strong person is one who can stand up for what's right, even when everybody else is doing wrong, right? A strong person is one who would be willing to point out to their friend that the way that they're conducting themselves is very disrespectful, right? A strong person is one who will maintain their integrity in regards to their positive moral character, even when there's a strong desire and pull for them to go in the opposite direction. That takes strength. That takes character, strength of mind. So notice here, these positive goals, they strengthen and motivate you to succeed and build and will build moral character. Okay, and so this is what positive goals do for each and every one of us. Well, let's look here back on page 116. So it says here, we'll just read that first sentence again. Now that you know the importance of setting goals that are positive, the next step is to be realistic about the goals you set. And you can go back there and read on page 12 under the section entitled Positive Goals, and you can see some of the things that positive goals are. They're honest, moral, and they'll help you be a better person, support your choice to develop a moral character. They have no negative effect on yourself and others, and they'll help you to achieve your purpose. Granted, you've taken the time to determine what your purpose is, okay, which came in the previous lesson. So, we can't skip over that, because what we're covering here in Be a Goal Setter or Setting Goals will continuously refer back to purposes, because the two work hand in hand. And so you might have to, teachers, we might have to go back and refresh some of that information if the student might be a little bit confused on understanding their purpose. All right, so it says here in the next sentence, realistic, okay, because the title here is Be Realistic. So here we get into the definitions here. It says realistic means to be sensible and practical, all right, sensible and practical. And goals that are realistic are well planned. Goals that are unrealistic are poorly planned, or notice here, not planned at all. They are pursued without consideration of all that would be required for them to be accomplished. So we're going to take a look at some information here regarding this definition of this word realistic and break it down a little bit more. Because realistic here, you notice here, they give two words, to be sensible and practical, right? So it's not just like telling somebody to have some sense, or act sensible. Let's look at what sensible really really means there. And these are from various sources, from Merriam-Webster to dictionary.com, Collins Dictionary, American Heritage, and so forth. So, but the word sensible, it in reference to a statement or course of action, okay? Because remember, we're talking about setting goals, and it takes action on the individual, the goal setter, to accomplish those goals. Okay, so because you have several different ways in which sensible can be used. So we're talking about a statement or course of action. And it says here, chosen in accordance with wisdom or prudence. Okay, talking about the word sensible here. Chosen in accordance with wisdom or prudence. Now, when you think about that, how is wisdom obtained? How does a person become wise in any particular trait or skill or course of life, right? Well, one of the first things that they need is they need to be educated. They have to be educated in that particular discipline in order to get the foundation, to get the facts of what it is that they're wanting to learn about. And then they have to have a period of time when they can put that education into practice. And over a period of time, through their behavior, you'll see that they're always making a choice to apply the principles to bring about a beneficial outcome that doesn't bring harm to themselves and others. That's the expression of wisdom, okay? Because there's a lot of people that have a lot of knowledge, but they don't use it in a way that brings benefit to themselves and others. They use it in a way that, in their minds, they think it brings benefit only to themselves, okay? And the courts, the laws of the land look at it in the terms of exploitation, embezzlement, Ponzi schemes, things of this nature, hacking, terroristic attacks. People have a lot of knowledge, but they don't use it in a positive way, okay? So knowledge in itself is not enough. You have to couple it with the principles that we're learning in the peaceful solution, positive moral character. Okay, and so wisdom or prudence, and it also means likely to be of benefit. Okay, likely to be of benefit. So we're talking about the word sensible. So it's likely to be of benefit, and that can easily be applied to the difference between what's right and wrong, what's positive and negative. Remember, a positive choice is one that doesn't bring harm to yourself, others, and the environment. It's beneficial, right? Likely to be of benefit. Well, how do you bring about that benefit? By using the wisdom or prudence that you've learned and that you've learned how to apply through what you've been taught through the peaceful solution or any other course of discipline, coupled with positive moral character that you've learned over a period of time. And it also says having, containing, or indicative of great sense, or it says good sense or reason. Okay? And then it gives you the words here, rational and reasonable. Rational and reasonable. Well, the word rational here, it's still in lines with sensible. It is based on facts. Get the facts. Get the facts. Make sure they're correct. You see, we can't separate, and this is why you'll always hear pretty much every class, every teacher will go back at one point in that class, we're going to mention that phrase, educate, because it's necessary. Everything that we're learning here is a part of this process of education. And it's one of the first steps in building a positive moral character. You can't just wish positive character. Our students can't just hope for a positive character. I mean, they can desire it, but then they have to educate themselves, and that's where our part as teachers come in. Well, even for us to be able to teach and impart that knowledge to our students, we have to first be educated ourselves, okay? So rational means based on facts or reason and not on emotions or feelings. Come on, let's be rational about this, says the person who's, in an argument, a heated argument with his, maybe coworker or his spouse or his child or friend or neighbor or something like that, because these hedges are too tall or whatever, and people they're responding based on emotions, okay, and they're not thinking about the outcome of how they're behaving or they're interacting with other people. So you got to stop and start, thinking sensibly about things, right? Not acting or responding based on facts or reason and not on emotions or feelings. It also is having the ability to reason or think about things clearly. Now, when you consider all of this and everything that we've covered in the previous lessons on the importance of why we have to have clear and healthy minds, and why we can't engage in risk-taking behaviors. We talked about the conformity and the peer pressure in the previous chapters, and why that can be very dangerous if it falls in the category of negative, because a person can do things that damages their mind, even in a very small way, that can affect their ability to recall information. And that information that they're not able to recall could be a very important part of what they have to do to be safe, to get their job done, to carry out a task, whatever the thing might be. Okay. So, we have to take all these other things into consideration when we think about, excuse me, when we think about this word rational, which ties into sensible, okay, which we're talking about realistic and setting realistic goals. And then we have the word reasonable, which ties into the word reason, or to be with reason. And that definition of the word reason is a fact, condition, or situation that makes it proper or appropriate to do something, feel something, etc. Okay, a fact, condition, or situation that makes it that makes it proper or appropriate to do something. Okay, it's reasonable for you to go through the intersection after you've stopped at the stop sign. Okay, because the law says, stop at the stop sign, look both ways, and then proceed with caution, which that part of that caution still lies on the part of the driver, right? If there's a slew of bikers, driving through the intersection in the opposite way, and you come to a stop sign, you can't stop and just go and then plow through the drivers and say, well, hey, I kept the law, I stopped at the stop sign. No, you have to do things that are reasonable. That means that it's proper and appropriate, right? You can't just plow through, a slew of bikers just because you stopped at the stop sign. You have to look at the situation and see, if I proceed forward, is this going to bring harm to someone else or myself? Okay, so this all ties into this word sensible here, which is a part of realistic. And then we have practical there. Practical means, quickly, it says of or concerned with the actual doing or use of something rather than with theory or ideas. It's like the practical application of the peaceful solution, okay? And the peaceful solution is not it's not a theory or an idea. These are proven principles that work, but you can take what's written on this paper, because all it is just words, right? And then when you put it into practice, which you can take what's written in this book and put it into practical use, and then start to see the benefits that come from practicing the peaceful solution. Let me see here. So, of or concern with the actual doing or use of something rather than with theory and ideas. Of an idea, plan, or method likely to succeed. Okay, so of an idea, plan, or method that's likely to succeed or be effective in real circumstances, or something that is feasible. Well, that's a feasible idea. Yes, we can do that. We can get everybody together on a Sunday afternoon, and we can go and feasibly we can get this whole area cleaned up, raked up, the trash picked up, everything bagged, the grass cut and everything, and the bushes trimmed, and be done by 3:00 that afternoon if we start at 8, right? That's something that we can plan out on paper, or hash out in a meeting, and then put it into practical use and accomplish that goal. Okay, and this all ties into what we're referring to as realistic. You know, that word plan there, because you see that in that word practical, it says an idea or a plan. And a plan is a detailed proposal for doing or achieving something. You know, a detailed proposal for doing or achieving something. And I think about that because when we you know, I occasionally do have to look at plans. You know, when I was doing a different trade, I looked at plans a little bit more often. But when if you ever gone through a set of plans for a house or a building, you know those plans are very specific. They're very detailed. You know, there's a set of plans that covers the structure, set of plans that covers the grade work, the concrete, you know, the framing, the electrical, the heating and the cooling, the plumbing. You know, everything's covered in those plans, and there's detailed sections for each trade that they have to follow in order for the architect to accomplish the goal of building this big, beautiful building, whether it's a house, a house or a a commercial building or a skyscraper, whatever the case might be. Right? Everybody has to follow the detailed instructions in that plan, and it's interesting because we have to. You think about plans and we think about goals. We do have to have our goals in line, and they have to be realistic and sensible. They have to be practical in order for us to accomplish them, in order for us to find success. If we don't have any goals, right, we're not really going to get very far in life. Okay? It's like running a race without a finish line, which we're going to cover here. Benjamin Franklin, I guess he was the one that made the quote, if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. Okay? If you don't have a goal in life, more likely you're not going to get very far because you won't have a sense of what you want to accomplish, and you're not going to have a direction, to grow in. You're not going to know what you're wanting to achieve. You can't go back to these plans and go, okay, I've got all the lighting fixtures in the proper place, right? Now I can go to this next step. And when it all comes together, you flip the switch and everything works, okay? If you don't have a plan, if you don't have goals, you'll just be throwing stuff together in life, and then it'll just be a fiasco at the end, and you'll go, where did all the time go? You feel like you haven't accomplished anything in life. All right, so just going back to that first paragraph, goals that are unrealistic are poorly planned or not planned at all. Okay, so these things have to be planned out, kind of like going on a trip, right? You don't just hop in the car, and before the days of GPS and TomToms and Magellans and things like that, we actually had to pull out a map, a road map or a road atlas, and had them of the United States and all the individual states, and you would open that up and you would plan your route, and you would also have contingencies if a part of your route was blocked or there was construction going on, where you could make a detour and then continue on your way so you can get to your the place that you're striving to go to. So we have to have things well planned out. Now here it says goals that are unrealistic are pursued without consideration. You can consider that in a way of saying impulsively, of all that would be required for them to be accomplished. Now, to be realistic about the goals you set, take into consideration the following questions. And we have 5 questions down here that we can try to really kind of create a little bit of discussion with your students in regards to this. And, you can set up several different examples of things that could be accomplished and how they could be accomplished and so forth. And cover these points in detail with your class. So the first one here is how long will it take for you to accomplish what you want? Right? How long will it take for you to accomplish what you want? Will you have enough time? Okay, so these are the things that we have to get them to thinking. How long will it take to accomplish? A, will they have enough time? B, without considering the time it will take, you might take on, okay, it's not really a B, but without considering the time it will take, you may take on more than you can handle within a given time period. And I've made this mistake, in just going throughout my work week, and I might start the the beginning of the week off, feeling energetic and ready to get out there and just give it my all. And I'll take out my notebook, and then I'll start writing down, the different things that I have to accomplish that day. And I look at it and I go, well, that's quite a bit. But man, if I set my mind to it, I can really accomplish it. And I might have about 5 or 6 things down there. Well, come 4 or 5:30, I'm just finishing up the second one. And I look and I go, oh, well, that didn't work out like I was planning to. If I just had another 8 or 9 more hours in the day, I could accomplish these things. Well, that's not realistic. Everybody has 24 hours in the day. It doesn't matter what your job is, where you are on the face of the earth, even in the midnight sun areas of the north. You still have 24 hours of the day, right? And the realistic part about that is you've got to have a certain time to work. You have time that you have to commute. You have time that, you have to eat. You have time you have to sleep. There's other things that have to be done. So all these things have to be taken into consideration when setting a goal and possibly putting a time on accomplishing it. So without considering the time it will take, you might take on more than you can handle within a given period of time. And if you're not careful, that can lead a person to think that they're a failure, right? I set these goals, I'm doing what the Peaceful Solution is telling me to do, be a goal setter. But, when I set goals, I don't get them done. I only had 100 goals for the day. Why can't I get it done, right? Well, that's not being realistic, okay? So that's why all these bits of information have to be applied in setting and accomplishing goals, okay? So next point here is this something you can accomplish by yourself, or will you need assistance from others, okay? And that's something that, a lot of, I don't know, I'm not going to just say young people, but it's pretty common with young people, and unless they've been brought up in an environment and they've been nurtured to it's nothing wrong with asking for help, and they've seen through experience that yes, if I'm having a hard time, if I ask for help, I can get the guidance. Things go a lot easier for me, right? Whether it's in a preventative way or it's in an intervention type way. I'm already caught in this difficulty. Now I've got to go and get help to get out. Sometimes they learn that, well, it's better to ask for help beforehand so I don't, run into a difficult situation. So it says here, if so, right, if you do need help from others, are they willing to assist you? And there's different ways that they can assist you. It can be through guidance, through being on the job or helping you with a particular task, teaching you. Maybe they might have the knowledge that you're wanting to acquire to do a particular thing. Is it financial assistance? Do you need someone to, pay for maybe books or schooling or a course or a class that you might need to take and you don't have the resources? Do you need them to assist you in that way? Could be transportation. Could be consent, right? Sometimes you have to get that consent from your parents to do certain things. You can't just do it on your own. So it says, keep in mind that the only person you have control over is you. You cannot force someone to help you, no more than like William covered in the previous class and talking about the nuclear bombs and using force to try to force peace on another nation or force a way or agenda upon another nation. That doesn't work, nor does it work to you to force someone to help you to accomplish your positive goal, right? That's like, I'm in debt, so I'm going to go and steal from somebody in order to pay my debt back, right? Well, it's positive to want to pay my debt, to want to keep my word. The negative part is going to steal money from someone else. Well, it would be negative to force someone to help you. It says that willingness must come from the individual. Now think about it from your point of view in accomplishing your goals. That willingness must come from you. Now someone can influence you and someone could even set a goal in front of you to accomplish. Like your parent might give you a chore to say, I'd like to get the garage painted, or I'd like to get the grass cut. Now they've given you a goal to accomplish. Well, that willingness must come from you as the individual to get that thing accomplished. And even if you do it, having a positive attitude when you do it will make it go a lot farther and sometimes a lot faster. So it says you also need to consider how often you will need their assistance and whether they are committed to helping you every time you need them. And that brought into mind something that's, it's still in existence. It was really in existence. Well, I shouldn't say really in existence. It was more prominent and more talked about when I was in high school, and previously, and that's the course of apprenticeships and journeymen. Trades. People who learn particular trades. It made me think about this when I read this. Is this something you can accomplish by yourself? Okay, because people might have a goal, let's say, of developing or learning a particular trade. Well, sure, you can read a book and you can, practice and try to get experience and make a lot of mistakes and, burn a lot of fingers and smash a lot of thumbs and, hit yourself with a lot of 2x4s on the head, right? But you probably get a lot further and make a lot less mistakes if you had someone there to help you to accomplish your goal or to train you. And so, I went back and I looked up apprenticeships because, if anybody who's gone through a trade to get a license, you typically have to go through some type of apprenticeship. And just to give you a history of it here, it says the system of apprenticeships first developed in the latter Middle Ages and came to be supervised by craft guilds and town government. So there was a governing body that governed these apprenticeships. A master craftsman was entitled to employ young people as an inexpensive form of labor in exchange for providing food, lodging, and formal training in the craft. Now, this was medieval time. This is not done like this anymore. People go and they get an apprenticeship with a plumber or a electrician and so forth. Well, they get an hourly rate and they get the training that they need. Some places actually still do have apprenticeships where you have to go and stay in that particular state or city, and they have dorms and so forth, and you kind of are in a contractual agreement to take an apprenticeship with them for 1 year or 2 years, but you also get you get a stipend, you get paid while you're there. Okay, so it's kind of based on that same concept, but this was the history of the Middle Ages here. Labor laws have changed much since then. It says most apprentices were males, but female apprentices were found in crafts such as seamstress, tailors, cordwainer, baker, and stationer. Apprentices usually began at 10 to 15 years of age and would live in the master craftsman's household. The contract between the craftsman, the apprentice, and generally the apprentice's parents, so the consent or the permission given, would be governed by an indenture. All right, and so they show here that most apprentices aspire to becoming master craftsmen themselves. And then so once they go through a period of apprenticeship, which, back then it was usually about 7 years or so. Nowadays, it's based on the number of hours that you have. I know when I was plumbing, you had to have so many 1,000 hours, 2,000 hours or so to, go from an apprentice to get a tradesman's license. And then you had to have 4,000 or so hours to go from a tradesman's to a journeyman and so forth. And, those rules do change sometimes, and it depends on what trade you might be in that would determine how many hours you need. But then then you go from an apprentice to a journeyman. And it says here, the word journey comes from the French journée. I'm a little bit rusty on my French, excuse me, which means day, which in turn comes from the Latin diurnus, excuse me again for that one, pertaining to a day or daily. The title journeyman refers to the right to charge a fee for each day's work. Now remember, apprentice didn't have that right to charge for a fee. They were getting training and they were getting compensation in the form of training and lodging and so forth. A journeyman has completed an apprenticeship but is employed by another. such as a master craftsman, but they would live apart and might have a family of their own. A journeyman could not employ others, and in contrast to an apprentice, would be bound to a master usually for a fixed term of 7 years and so forth. So that's going back to the apprentice. So that's an example there of like an apprentice, a journeyman. Some trades have different phases in between apprentice and journeyman and so forth. But, you know, in certain things, you need others to train you. Now, an apprentice, say you want to be an apprentice plumber, you couldn't just go out and get, an apprentice card all by yourself. No, you have to be working or operating under a licensed plumber. And I would assume it might be the same for an electrician or a carpenter or an air conditioning person or something that requires some type of a licensure. And so you have to be under their supervision. So this is a case where you can't accomplish something like this by yourself. It'd be the same with medicine too. When you're practicing your residency or so, after you've gone through so many years of medical school and so forth, you can't just walk up in the hospital and start slicing on people. You have to operate under someone else. And so, that's in regards to licensing, but there are other things that, might not require such things, but you might still need help. So it's necessary for us to encourage the students in setting their goals, take into consideration, well, do I need help? Is this person willing to help me? And how often will I need help? And will they be available every time? Or will I have to find somebody else from time to time? And let's look at point 3 there. It says, will you need additional information to pursue your goal? Going right back again to educating ourselves. And there's something that's called continuing education. We've had many seminars and courses in the Peaceful Solution where we've gone and we've spoke with teachers who took particular courses in character development, and it was a part of their hours. They had to have so many hours of continuing education every year to keep their licensing up, okay? Because things change, developments change, new laws come in, and so forth. So will you need additional information to pursue your goal? Before you commit to yourself to pursuing a goal, consider if you have enough information, right? Is what you know about what you're wanting to do enough, or do you need to find out more? Say you want, a person wants to, they have a goal of owning a big landscaping firm, right? Well, they might need to see that, okay, I've got a lawnmower, I've got some weed whackers, I've got a way to get my equipment around. Do I need to have a permit or a license to work in certain neighborhoods? Different jurisdictions might have different rules, right? This place, you don't need to have a license, a business license or a permit to cut grass or to do this in their neighborhood. Over here, you might have to, and you might have to pay a $25 fee. And they say, well, ignorance is no excuse. So this is where it comes in, where you need additional information, so they have to kind of feel things out, see the direction that they want to go, kind of the paths that they want to cross, and find out, okay, what else do I need to know about this in order to make a proper decision? Is this something I want to do? Is this something I can do? Some things have age limits or age restrictions on them. You have to be a minimum of 16 years old, a minimum of 18 years old, right? So getting this information will help them to get a little bit of understanding of what they need in order to make a proper decision in setting a goal. And then it says here, what sacrifices will you have to make? Now, making sacrifices when setting goals means that you have to give up one or more things in order to accomplish what you want. And if you look up the definition of sacrifices in regards to this, not talking about animals or anything like that, that's exactly what it says. To give up one or more things in order to accomplish what you want. Are you willing to make those sacrifices? If a person's not willing to make the sacrifices, if the person's not willing to give up of their weekend of fun, to study for something that they're wanting to do, or to plan out or build or meet with people that they need to meet with in order to accomplish, a particular goal, well, they're probably not going to accomplish that goal. In order to sacrifice, you have to have discipline and you have to have a determination, but you really need to be disciplined, in those situations. For example, you forfeit going bowling. Really want to go bowling? We love bowling. Or to the movies or other costly event with your friends so you could save money to spend on books with the information you need to further your goals. All right. And then lastly, will you need money to accomplish your goal? If so, you must have an honest legal means. Like the example, I want to pay my bills. Well, you can't go and steal from somebody, like the old saying, you can't rob Peter to pay Paul. You must find legal means of getting the money you need. For example, you want to become a carpenter and a contractor. First, you need knowledge concerning the trade, the tools, and how to use them. Then you need knowledge on contracting jobs, pricing, bidding on jobs, plus hiring suitable help for this trade. Working spare time for a carpenter or contractor would be a great way to start. And that takes us right back into our apprenticeship. And that's a great way to get the experience from somebody who has already obtained the years of experiences and the what to's and not to do that they can pass over to you, so you don't have to make these mistakes and these failures that can cost you a lot of time and a lot of resources. So we're going to stop right there on page 116, and we'll be picking up next class on page 117, the sweet smell of success, which comes together when we put all these principles into practice in achieving our goals. So next class will be 11/24, 5:30 Central Standard Time. We look forward to having you, and have a wonderful evening.